Scotland isn't what you think it is. Forget everything Hollywood told you about this country. Sure, there are castles and kilts, but there's something way more interesting happening here that nobody talks about. While most people are paying $3,000 a month to live in cramped apartments in London or New York, there's a place where you can actually live well for $700 a month, surrounded by mountains that make the Alps look modest, and where the locals have perfected the art of turning potatoes into poetry. This isn't some clickbait fantasy. This is real life in Scotland, where you can rent a stone cottage overlooking a loch for what most people pay for a parking spot in Manhattan. But here's what's really wild. The quality of life here might actually be better than anywhere else in Europe. The air is cleaner than your conscience. The water is so pure it makes Swiss brands jealous. And the people have a humor so sharp it could cut glass. And let's talk about Scottish women for a minute. They're not what you'd expect from the stereotypes. These are women who can discuss philosophy over a pint, fix their own car, and still look stunning while wrestling sheep in the Highlands. They've got that rare combination of intelligence, independence, and a sense of humor that can make you forget your own name. Dating here isn't about impressing someone with your wallet. It's about matching their wit and keeping up with their stories. The Highlands aren't just scenery you scroll past on Instagram. They're a way of life where your biggest worry is whether you remember to bring your camera, not whether you can afford rent this month. Where your neighbor might be a sheep farmer who speaks 3 languages and knows more about ancient history than most professors. Scotland has been hiding in plain sight while everyone fights over overpriced apartments in London. But here's the thing, that $700 a month lifestyle is real. The landscapes are more dramatic than anything you've seen, and the culture runs deeper than most countries' entire histories. This isn't just about saving money, it's about living better for less. In a place where 1,000-year-old castles are your local landmarks, and where the northern lights dance above your head in winter, Scotland occupies the northern third of Britain. But calling it just part of Britain is about as accurate as calling Mozart just another piano player. This country packs more geographical diversity into its borders than most continents manage. You've got the dramatic Highlands in the north, where mountains shoot up from sea level like nature is showing off. Then there are the gentler lowlands in the south, which are only low compared to their towering neighbors. They still count as proper mountains in most American states. The coastline stretches for over 6,000 miles, which sounds impossible until you realize Scotland has more islands. Then it knows what to do with minus 790 at last count, though only about 130 have permanent residents. Some of these islands are so remote that the postman needs a boat, and Amazon Prime definitely doesn't deliver there. The Western Isles, the Orkneys, Shetland, each group has its own character, its own accent, and its own way of making you feel both welcomed and completely out of your depth. Edinburgh, the capital, sits in the east like a medieval fever dream that someone decided to make the center of government. It's got a castle perched on a volcanic rock right in the middle of town. Because apparently normal hills weren't dramatic enough, Glasgow, over in the west, is Edinburgh's grittier, more musical cousin, the kind of city where you might hear bagpipes and techno coming from the same building. But here's where Scottish history gets interesting, and why it explains everything about the people you'll meet today. This isn't a country that was gently formed by committee. It was forged by clans who spent centuries fighting each other, the Romans, the English, and occasionally the weather. William Wallace wasn't just some guy Mel Gibson played in a movie. He was part of a tradition of Scottish independence that runs so deep it's practically genetic. These clans weren't just families, they were many nations with their own laws, their own territories, and their own very creative ways of settling disputes. The MacDonalds controlled vast stretches of the Highlands and Islands. The Campbells were notorious for changing sides more often than people change clothes. The MacLeods held Skye like it was their personal kingdom, which, for practical purposes, it was. The landscape shaped the people as much as the people shaped the landscape. Living in the Highlands meant dealing with weather that could change from sunny to apocalyptic in the time it takes to make tea. It meant communities that had to be self-sufficient, because the nearest help might be a 3-day walk through mountains that could kill you. This produced a culture that values independence, resourcefulness, and the kind of dark humor that only comes from staring down impossible odds and laughing. The Highland clearances in the 18th and 19th centuries forced many Scots to leave their ancestral lands, spreading Scottish culture across the world. But the ones who stayed developed an even stronger connection to their land. Today, as Highlanders aren't just living in Scotland, they're continuing a conversation with the land that has been going on for thousands of years. Scottish daily life operates on a rhythm that most of the world has forgotten existed. The day doesn't start with aggressive productivity mantras or caffeine-fueled panic. It starts with a proper conversation about the weather, which in Scotland is never boring because the weather itself is never boring. You might wake up to sunshine, have lunch in a thunderstorm, and watch the sunset through snow flurries. The pub isn't just where people drink. It's Scotland's unofficial town hall, therapy center, and entertainment complex all rolled into one. These aren't the sterile sports bars you find in American suburbs. Scottish pubs have names like the Drover's Inn and the World's End, and they've got the stories to match. The Drover's Inn, for example, has been serving drinks since 1705 and is supposedly haunted by so many ghosts. They've given up counting. Football, and they'll correct you if you call it soccer, is treated with religious devotion. Celtic versus Rangers isn't just a game, it's a cultural event that can affect the mood of entire cities. Grown men will plan their weddings around the fixture list, and the conversation in pubs can shift from philosophical discussions about independence to heated debates about offside calls without missing a beat. Storytelling here isn't just entertainment, it's an art form that's been refined over centuries. Scots have this ability to turn a trip to the grocery store into an epic saga with plot twists, character development, and a moral lesson. They can make waiting for a bus sound like an adventure worth documenting. This isn't just cultural quirk. It has a survival mechanism developed in a place where long winter nights needed filling. And entertainment had to be created, not consumed. The Highland way of life moves slower, but accomplishes more. There's no rushing because rushing doesn't make the sheep move faster or the weather improve. Instead, there's a focus on doing things properly, whether that is building a stone wall that will last centuries or brewing whiskey that needs decades to reach perfection. Time isn't money here, time is time, and money is just something you need enough of. Music flows through Scottish culture in ways that make other countries jealous. Traditional music isn't confined to tourist shows. You'll hear fiddles in living rooms, bagpipes on street corners, and singing in languages that were old when English was still a regional dialect. The accordion is treated with respect, the fiddle with reverence, and the bagpipes with the kind of love usually reserved for family members. The humor is sharp enough to perform surgery. Scots have perfected the art of the devastating one-liner delivered with perfect timing and a completely straight face. They can insult you so cleverly that you don't realize you've been insulted. Until 3 conversations later, self-deprecation is raised to an art form. They can make fun of themselves in ways so creative that you end up respecting them more, not less. Scottish cuisine has been criminally misunderstood by the rest of the world, probably because most people's exposure to it begins and ends with haggis jokes. Yes, haggis exists, and yes, it's made from sheep's heart, liver, and lungs mixed with oatmeal, suet, and spices, all stuffed into a sheep's stomach. But here's the thing nobody tells you. It's actually delicious. It tastes nothing like what you'd expect and everything like what comfort food should be. The traditional haggis, neeps, and Taddy's meal, that has turnips and potatoes to the uninitiated, represents Scottish cooking. At its most fundamental, it's hearty, warming, and designed by people who understood that food needs to sustain you through weather. That is actively trying to kill you. The turnips are mashed with butter until they're creamy. The potatoes are fluffy and golden. And together they create something that makes you understand why Scots are so attached to their homeland. But Scottish food culture goes way beyond the traditional dishes that get all the tourist attention. Scotland has embraced the coffee revolution with the enthusiasm of a nation that really needed better ways to stay warm. Cities now have coffee shops that would make Portland hipsters weep with envy. These aren't Starbucks clones. They're right places where the barista knows the farmer who grew the beans and can tell you stories about both. The craft beer scene has exploded across Scotland with the force of a Highland thunderstorm. Brewdogs started here and conquered the world, but they're just the beginning. Small breweries are tucked away in converted churches, old railway stations, and Highland bothies, creating beers with names like Tactical Nuclear Penguin and the End of History. These aren't just drinks. They're liquid expressions of Scottish creativity and complete disregard for conventional wisdom. And then there's whiskey, spelled without the E because Scotland has standards. There are 5 distinct whiskey regions in Scotland, each producing spirits so different they might as well be from different planets. Islay whiskies taste like campfires and sea spray. Speyside whiskies are elegant and complex. Highland whiskies can range from gentle to aggressive. Each distillery has its own character, its own secrets, and its own loyal followers who can identify their favorite dram blindfolded. Scotch pies are the ultimate Scottish fast food. Individual meat pies with crispy pastry that can be eaten with one hand while discussing football or the weather. They're sold in bakeries, chip shops, and football stadiums. And they race so deeply embedded in Scottish culture that there's an annual championship to determine the best one in the country. The winner takes this more seriously than most Nobel Prize recipients. The infamous deep-fried Mars bar deserves special mention because it perfectly captures Scottish attitudes toward both food and life. Someone looked at a chocolate bar and thought, this could be improved with batter and hot oil. And instead of being institutionalized, they created a cultural phenomenon. It's not health food, it's not sophisticated, but it's honest, unapologetic, and surprisingly addictive. Modern Scottish cuisine has evolved far beyond the traditional stereotypes. Restaurants in Edinburgh and Glasgow are serving food that competes with anywhere in Europe, using Scottish ingredients in ways that would make Gordon Ramsay proud. Fresh seafood from the cold Atlantic waters. Highland beef that's been grazing on grass that grows in soil enriched by centuries of rain. Vegetables grown in conditions that make them fight for every nutrient. The full Scottish breakfast is an engineering marvel disguised as a meal. Black pudding, white pudding, square sausage, round sausage, eggs, beans, grilled tomatoes, mushrooms, and tea scones all arranged on a plate with the precision of a Swiss watch. It's designed to fuel you through a full day of Highland hiking or Glasgow shopping, and it succeeds so thoroughly that you might not be hungry again until next Tuesday. Scottish women are probably not what you're expecting, and that's exactly what makes them fascinating. Forget whatever stereotypes you've collected from movies or casual conversations. These are women shaped by a culture that values independence, intelligence, and the ability to handle yourself in any situation. They can discuss politics over breakfast, fix a flat tire before lunch, and still look stunning at dinner while making you laugh so hard you forget your own problems. The independence thing isn't just political, it's personal and profound. Scottish women grow up in a culture where self-sufficiency is prized, where you're expected to have opinions and defend them, and where being able to take care of yourself isn't just admirable, it's essential. This creates women who don't need rescuing but might enjoy good company, who don't require entertainment but can provide it in abundance. Dating culture here operates on completely different principles than what you might be used to. There's less emphasis on expensive restaurants and impressive gestures, more focus on actual conversation and genuine connection. A perfect date might involve a walk through the Highlands followed by drinks in a pub that's older than your country, where the conversation flows as smoothly as the whiskey and twice as warming. Scottish humor in relationships is legendary. These are women who can devastate your ego with a perfectly timed joke, then build it back up with another one. They communicate through wit, challenge through banter, and show affection through increasingly creative ways of making fun of you. If a Scottish woman is roasting you mercilessly, congratulations, you've made the inner circle. The social scene centers around pubs, but these aren't just drinking establishments. They're community centers where relationships are built, tested, and celebrated. The local pub is where you'll meet everyone worth knowing, where conversations can last until closing time, and where you learn more about Scottish culture in one evening than most guidebooks can teach you in a week. Seal dancing, pronounced Kaylee because Gaelic spelling follows its own mysterious rules. Is social interaction elevated to an art form? These aren't stuffy formal dances, they're organized chaos where everyone's welcome. Mistakes are expected, and laughter is mandatory. You'll be paired with strangers, spun around until dizzy, and expected to keep up with steps that seem to change whenever you think you've figured them out. Festival culture provides endless opportunities for social connection. Hogmanay celebrations can last for days, with entire cities turning into massive parties where strangers become friends and friends become family. Burns Night suppers celebrate Scotland's national poet with ceremonies that manage to be both deeply traditional and completely irreverent. Highland Games bring communities together to watch grown men throw telephone poles and toss cabers while eating shortbread and arguing about everything. The Edinburgh Festival transforms the city every August into a massive cultural explosion, where performers, artists, and visitors from around the world mix with locals who've seen it all before, but still get excited about the chaos. It's speed dating for cultural enthusiasts, where you might meet a fire juggler from Australia, a poet from Wales, and a software engineer from Dundee all in the same conversation. Relationships here tend to be straightforward in ways that might surprise you. There's less game playing, fewer artificial rules about who calls whom when. If someone's interested, they'll let you know through the sophisticated communication method of actually talking to you. If they're not interested, they'll let you know that too, often in ways so clever you'll appreciate the artistry even while being rejected. The loyalty factor runs deep. Scots form relationships, romantic and platonic, that can last lifetimes. They don't collect acquaintances, they cultivate connections. When you're accepted into someone's inner circle, you're not just a friend, you're family. This can be intimidating for people used to more casual social structures, but it's also incredibly rewarding. Community events happen year-round, from local fairs to Highland gatherings to impromptu celebrations that emerge whenever someone has something worth celebrating. These aren't formal affairs requiring special clothes or careful planning. They're organic gatherings where the entertainment is provided by whoever shows up, and the main requirement is a willingness to participate in whatever develops. Scottish festivals aren't just events. They're time machines that transport entire communities back to their roots, while simultaneously celebrating who they've become. These aren't tourist attractions. They're living traditions that reveal the heart of Scottish culture, often with results that are both deeply moving and completely bonkers. Hogmanay transforms Scotland into a countryside party that makes New Year's Eve celebrations elsewhere look like quiet book clubs. The word itself comes from ancient traditions that predate Christianity, and the modern celebration maintains that pagan enthusiasm for marking the turning of the year. Edinburgh's Hogmanay Street Party can host over 100,000 people, all gathered to watch fireworks explode over a medieval castle while bagpipers play and strangers kiss at midnight. But the real magic of Hogmanay happens in smaller communities, where traditions have been preserved with religious devotion. First footing, being the first person to cross someone's threshold after midnight, requires bringing gifts of coal, shortbread, salt, and whiskey. The coal ensures warmth for the coming year, the shortbread guarantees food, the salt brings prosperity, and the whiskey, well, the whiskey makes everything more interesting. Burns Night celebrates Robert Burns, Scotland's national poet, with suppers that manage to be both deeply reverent and completely ridiculous. The evening begins with the ceremonial piping in of the haggis, where a bagpiper leads a procession carrying the haggis like it's a visiting dignitary. Then someone recites Burns' address to a haggis with theatrical passion, while dramatically slicing open the dish with a ceremonial knife. The whole affair is both completely serious and utterly mad, which perfectly captures the Scottish approach to tradition. People dress formally, eat haggis, recite poetry in dialect so thick it requires translation, drink toasts to everything from the immortal memory to the lassies, and somehow turn this into an evening of genuine celebration that bonds strangers into temporary family. Highland Games happen throughout the summer across Scotland, but calling them games undersells the spectacle. These are competitions where grown men attempt to throw telephone poles end over end, toss hammers distances that seem to defy physics, and put stones that weigh more than most people. The caber toss, flipping a 20-foot tree trunk so it lands in a perfect straight line, looks impossible until you watch someone actually do it. But Highland Games aren't just about impressive feats of strength. There's Highland dancing, where competitors perform complex steps while balancing on their toes. Bagpiping competitions that can be heard from neighboring counties. And demonstrations of traditional crafts that connect modern Scotland to its ancient roots. Children compete alongside adults, tourists cheer next to locals. And everyone goes home slightly sunburned and completely enchanted. Seela dancing happens wherever Scottish people gather in sufficient numbers. These aren't formal performances. They're community celebrations where participation is more important than perfection. The dances have names like Strip the Willow and Gay Gordons, and while the steps can be complex, the main requirement is enthusiasm. You'll be grabbed by strangers, spun around until dizzy, and expected to laugh when you inevitably go the wrong direction. Tartan culture deserves special mention because it has been so thoroughly commercialized that many people assume it is all tourist nonsense. In reality, tartan patterns tell stories. Each clan has its own designs, often with multiple variations for different occasions. Ancient tartans use natural dyes and traditional patterns. Modern tartans incorporate new colors and designs that reflect contemporary Scotland. The Edinburgh Military Tattoo brings together military bands from around the world to perform on the esplanade of Edinburgh Castle. The word tattoo comes from the Dutch do den tap do, meaning turn off the taps, which was the signal for soldiers to return to quarters. Modern tattoos feature mass pipe bands, military displays, and performances that combine precision with spectacle against the backdrop of a floodlit medieval castle. Traditional Scottish weddings incorporate customs that date back centuries. The blackening involves friends and family covering the bride and groom with various substances. Before the wedding, everything from treacle to flour to soot, then parading them through town. The theory is that if a couple can handle this together, they can handle marriage. Modern couples often skip this particular tradition. Hand-fasting ceremonies, where couples' hands are literally tied together during the ceremony, hence tying the knot, represent commitment that transcends legal formalities. The binding is temporary, but the symbolism is permanent. Some Scottish wedding traditions are beautiful, some are bizarre, and some are both simultaneously. Living on $700 a month in Scotland isn't just possible. It is a lifestyle that many people discover they prefer to spending 3 times that amount in overpriced cities. The key is understanding that Scottish living isn't about deprivation. It is about different priorities and better values. Housing costs outside the major cities can be shockingly reasonable. Small Highland towns offer stone cottages with views that would cost millions anywhere else. Available for rent at prices that make urban dwellers weep with envy. A 2-bedroom flat in Inverness, a proper city with all modern conveniences, can rent for £400 to £500 per month. Move to smaller towns like Dornoch or Ullapool, and you're looking at even less. The secret is that Scotland has hundreds of small communities that offer full modern amenities, without big city prices. These aren't rural backwaters, they're functioning towns with supermarkets, cafes, libraries, and often surprisingly good internet connections. The trade-off is that your local entertainment options might be limited to one pub, and whatever nature provides, but for many expats, this turns out to be a feature, not a bug. Food costs follow a similar pattern. Shopping at large chain supermarkets keeps grocery bills reasonable, especially when you embrace Scottish staples that are both cheap and filling. A bag of Taddy's potatoes costs almost nothing and can form the base for dozens of meals. Local butchers often provide better quality meat at lower prices than city supermarkets, and if you're near the coast, fresh seafood can be incredibly affordable. The student lifestyle adapts particularly well to Scottish living. Universities here have strong traditions of affordable student housing in communities designed around walking rather than driving. Many expats discover that the social aspects of student towns, pubs, cultural events, libraries, cafes, provide everything they actually want from city living without the stress and expense. Transportation costs stay manageable because Scotland is designed for public transport. The rail network connects major cities efficiently, and bus services reach communities that seem impossibly remote. A monthly bus pass in most Scottish cities costs less than a single taxi ride in London. For longer distances, advanced booking on trains can provide travel costs so low they seem like pricing mistakes. The National Health Service removes the healthcare cost anxiety that dominates financial planning in many countries. Registration is straightforward for legal residents, and the service covers everything from routine checkups to major surgeries. This isn't just about saving money. It's about the psychological freedom that comes from not worrying about medical bankruptcy. Entertainment costs reflect Scottish priorities. A pint in a local pub costs a fraction of what you'd pay in trendy London bars, and the conversation that comes with it is often better than anything you could pay for elsewhere. Museums are frequently free, hiking costs nothing beyond transportation, and cultural events often happen in community centers rather than expensive venues. The Highland lifestyle naturally reduces many expenses that city dwellers consider essential. When your entertainment options include hiking mountains, exploring castles, and watching sunsets over lochs, expensive restaurants and clubs become unnecessary rather than unaffordable. Many expats discover they're having more fun while spending less money. Seasonal work opportunities abound for those willing to embrace them. Tourism creates summer jobs in hospitality, outdoor guiding, and festival work. Agriculture offers seasonal employment that combines physical work with rural living. These aren't career-building positions, but they're perfect for funding a lifestyle that prioritizes experience over accumulation. The social safety net provides security that allows for risk-taking. Unemployment benefits, housing assistance, and healthcare access mean that economic experiments, trying freelance work, starting a small business, pursuing creative projects, don't risk complete disaster. This security paradoxically enables more adventurous living. Winter heating costs require planning, but Scottish houses are built for Scottish weather. Proper insulation, efficient heating systems, and community resources help manage costs that could otherwise dominate budgets. Many Highlanders heat primarily with wood fires, combining cost savings with the satisfaction of physical work and the pleasure of real warmth. The expat community in Scotland tends toward people who prioritize quality of life over maximum income. These are individuals who've decided that earning less but living better represents a superior approach to life. The community is supportive, experienced with practical challenges, and generally enthusiastic about helping newcomers navigate the transition, getting around. Scotland reveals the country's character as much as any cultural tradition. This is a place designed for human-scale transportation, where trains follow routes carved through landscapes so dramatic they make the journey part of the destination. The West Highland Line from Glasgow to Mallaig has been called one of the world's most beautiful train rides, passing through Glencoe, alongside Loch Lomond, and over the Glenfinnan Viaduct that Harry Potter fans recognize from the movies. Scottish trains operate with the reliability that comes from necessity. When weather can isolate communities for days, transportation systems develop resilience that makes Swiss precision look casual. The rolling stock might not be the newest in Europe, but the routes connect communities across landscapes that would challenge any transportation system. Traveling by train in Scotland isn't just practical, it's scenic therapy. Bus networks reach places that seem impossibly remote. The Scottish City Link network connects major cities, while local bus services reach Highland villages that appear to exist in geographic theory rather than reality. These aren't luxury coaches, but they're dependable, affordable, and operated by drivers who know every passenger and most of their family histories. Ferry services connect the islands to the mainland and to each other, operating schedules that depend as much on weather and tides as on clocks. Comic ferries serve the West Coast Islands, while Northlink connects the northern Isles of Orkney and Shetland to the mainland. Ferry travel in Scotland requires patience, flexibility, and a willingness to accept that some things are more important than strict schedules. Walking culture in Scotland extends far beyond hiking as recreation. Many Scottish communities developed around walking distances, to work, to shops, to the pub. This creates neighborhoods where cars are convenient, but not essential, where daily exercise happens naturally rather than requiring gym memberships, and where you actually know your neighbors because you encounter them regularly on foot. Cycling infrastructure varies dramatically between cities and rural areas. Edinburgh and Glasgow have invested heavily in bike lanes and cycling facilities. Rural Scotland offers cycling opportunities that range from gentle family rides to challenges. that would test professional athletes. The North Coast 500 has become a cycling destination that attracts riders from across Europe, seeking routes that combine technical challenges with stunning scenery. Car ownership in Highlands, Scotland serves different purposes than in urban areas. Vehicles here are tools for accessing nature, carrying supplies, and maintaining independence in communities where the nearest services might be hours away. Highland cars tend to be practical, rather than prestigious, vehicles chosen for reliability over appearance, for function over fashion. The lifestyle that emerges from these transportation realities emphasizes local connections over distant appointments. When getting somewhere requires planning and effort, you become more selective about where you go and more appreciative when you arrive. This creates communities where people invest in local relationships, rather than constantly seeking entertainment elsewhere. Weather plays a starring role in Scottish transportation planning. Conditions can change from pleasant to dangerous in minutes, making weather awareness a survival skill rather than casual interest. Scots develop an intuitive understanding of how weather affects travel, leading to decision-making that prioritizes safety over schedules and flexibility over rigid planning. Public transportation culture encourages social interaction in ways that car-dependent societies have lost. Bus rides become social events. Train journeys provide opportunities for conversations with strangers, and shared transportation experiences create community bonds. The isolation that characterizes much of modern life simply doesn't develop when transportation involves shared spaces and common experiences. Highland lifestyle naturally incorporates physical activity into daily routines. Walking to shops, hiking for entertainment, and manual work as regular activities create fitness levels that gym memberships struggle to match. This isn't exercise pursued for its own sake. It's movement integrated into living in ways that make dedicated workout time unnecessary. The pace of life adjusts to transportation realities. When the next bus comes in 2 hours rather than 2 minutes, you learn to plan differently, to be less frantic, and to find value in waiting. This forced acceleration often becomes one of the most appreciated aspects of Scottish living. For people escaping high-stress urban environments, Scotland's natural attractions don't just provide scenery. They reshape your understanding of what landscapes can do. The Scottish Highlands contain mountains that rise directly from sea level to heights that create their own weather systems. Lochs so deep they might hide monsters, and valleys carved by glaciers with the precision of master sculptors. Working on a continental scale, Loch Ness stretches for 23 miles through the Great Glen, holding more water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined. The famous monster might be questionable, but the loch's mystery is real. Water so dark it appears black, depths that remain unexplored, and acoustic properties that carry sounds in unexpected directions create an environment where believing in monsters becomes easier than dismissing them. The Isle of Skye deserves its reputation as one of Europe's most dramatic landscapes. The Quillan Mountains create a skyline so jagged it looks like the Earth's surface cracked during creation. The Old Man of Storr, Kilt Rock, and the Queering provide hiking opportunities that range from family-friendly walks to technical challenges that test experienced mountaineers. Skye's beauty is aggressive rather than gentle, landscapes that demand attention rather than quietly pleasing. Glencoe earned its reputation through both natural drama and human tragedy. The valley's geological history involves volcanic explosions, glacial carving, and tectonic collisions that created landscapes of almost supernatural intensity. The human history includes the 1692 massacre that gave Glencoe its reputation for haunted beauty. Modern visitors experience both the natural grandeur and the cultural weight of a place where beauty and tragedy intertwine. Edinburgh Castle dominates its city from a volcanic plug that's been fortified for over 1,000 years. The castle isn't just a tourist attraction. It's a living symbol of Scottish identity that continues to play roles in national ceremonies. The Stone of Destiny, used in coronations of Scottish kings, resides here when not in use. The 1 o'clock gun fires daily, providing time signals that synchronize the city's clocks. The North Coast 500 has emerged as Scotland's answer to Route 66, a 500-mile circuit around the Northern Highlands that showcases landscapes so varied they seem impossible to fit in a single country. The route includes everything from tropical-looking beaches near Durness to lunar landscapes around Applecross, from fishing villages that time forgot to mountain passes that challenge both vehicles and nerves. Cairngorms National Park contains four of Scotland's 5 highest peaks, along with ancient forests, Arctic plateaus, and wildlife populations that include red deer, golden eagles, and the occasional wildcat. The park's size, larger than the Lake District and Yorkshire Dales combined, provides space for genuine wilderness experiences within day-trip distance of major cities. Orkney and Shetland offer landscapes and cultures so distinct they feel like separate countries. Orkney's Neolithic sites predate Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids, providing evidence of sophisticated civilizations that flourished when most of Europe was still figuring out agriculture. Shetland's position between Scotland and Norway creates cultural influences that blend Scandinavian and Celtic traditions in ways found nowhere else. The West Coast provides beach experiences that rival tropical destinations, minus the tropical temperatures. Singing Sands Beach on Eigg produces musical sounds when walked upon. Luskintyre Beach on Harris offers white sand and turquoise water. That looks like Caribbean postcards until you feel the Atlantic wind. Scottish castles number in the thousands, ranging from ruins that barely mark their former existence to fully maintained fortresses that continue hosting events. Eilean Donan, perched on a tidal island and connected to shore by a stone bridge, has appeared in countless films and photographs. Stirling Castle controlled the gateway between Highlands and Lowlands, making it central to Scottish history and independence struggles. Highland wildlife offers encounters impossible in most of Europe. Red deer roam in herds that can number in the hundreds. Golden eagles patrol skies with wingspans that cast shadows large enough to notice. Seals populate coastal areas in numbers that turn rocky shores into natural wildlife parks. Puffins nest on sea cliffs during summer months, providing birdwatching opportunities that require no special equipment or expertise. The hiking opportunities range from gentle walks suitable for families to technical climbs that challenge experienced mountaineers. The West Highland Way follows ancient routes through varied landscapes over 96 miles from Glasgow to Fort William. Munro Bagging, climbing Scotland's to 180 to peaks over 3,000 feet, provides lifetime challenges for serious hikers, but equally rewarding are shorter walks to waterfalls, viewpoints, and historical sites that offer profound experiences without requiring expedition planning. Weather adds drama to every outdoor experience. Scottish weather doesn't just provide background conditions, it actively participates in creating memories. Sunshine breaking through storm clouds to illuminate mountains creates light shows that professional photographers spend careers trying to capture. Rain transforms landscapes from dramatic to mystical. Snow turns familiar places into alien worlds that exist briefly before melting back to recognition. Scotland operates with safety levels that make most of the world jealous, and many visitors initially suspicious. Crime rates stay so low that police officers are more likely to help with directions than arrests. Violent crime exists, but remains rare enough to make headlines when it occurs. Property crime happens, but at levels that allow most people to live without constant security consciousness. The Highland regions achieve safety levels that approach statistical impossibility. Communities where everyone knows everyone else create natural security systems, more effective than any technology. Doors remain unlocked not from carelessness, but from experience that proves security unnecessary. Children walk to school alone, elderly people live independently, and visitors explore freely without safety concerns that dominate planning elsewhere. Glasgow's reputation for violence, earned in earlier decades, has been thoroughly updated by reality. Modern Glasgow consistently ranks as one of Britain's safest major cities. The cultural transformation from post-industrial decline to vibrant cultural center included dramatic improvements in public safety. Areas that were once avoided are now thriving neighborhoods where residents and visitors move freely. The police approach reflects Scottish cultural values: community-focused rather than confrontational, problem-solving rather than purely punitive. Scottish police officers are typically unarmed, relying on training, communication skills, and community support rather than weapons. This approach works because it's supported by communities that see police as neighbors, rather than occupying forces. Healthcare under NHS Scotland provides medical care that removes financial anxiety from health decisions. Registration is straightforward for legal residents, with services covering everything from routine checkups to major surgeries. Emergency care is available to everyone, including visitors, without financial prerequisites. Mental health services, while sometimes experiencing waiting lists, are available without cost barriers. The quality of NHS Scotland care competes favorably with private healthcare systems worldwide. Scottish medical schools produce doctors who are recruited globally. Research hospitals contribute to medical advances that benefit patients worldwide. The integration of services means that coordination between specialists, primary care providers, and social services happens systematically rather than accidentally. Prescription medications are free for all Scottish residents, regardless of income or employment status. This isn't just about cost savings. It's about removing barriers to medical compliance that create larger health problems. Preventive care is emphasized and accessible, creating health outcomes that reflect investment in population health rather than profitable. Treatment education in Scotland follows different principles and achieves different results than systems elsewhere. Scottish universities charge no tuition fees to Scottish and EU students, making higher education accessible based on ability rather than financial resources. This creates university environments where students focus on learning rather than financial survival, leading to different social dynamics and academic priorities. The University of Edinburgh, University of Glasgow, University of St Andrews, and other Scottish universities consistently rank among the world as best, while maintaining accessibility that elite institutions elsewhere have abandoned. The combination of academic excellence and financial accessibility attracts students globally, while serving Scottish communities that have supported these institutions for centuries. Scottish secondary education operates on different scheduling than English systems, with students entering university at 17 rather than 18, following 4-year degree programs rather than 3-year programs. This creates educational pathways that provide more flexibility while maintaining academic rigor. The emphasis on broad education rather than early specialization produces graduates with wider knowledge bases and more adaptable skills. Adult education opportunities abound through community colleges, university programs, and informal learning networks. The Scottish tradition of valuing education regardless of age or background creates systems that support career changes, skill development, and intellectual curiosity throughout life. Learning is treated as a lifelong process rather than a time-limited activity confined to youth. Social services integration means that healthcare, education, housing assistance, and employment services coordinate rather than compete. This systematic approach addresses problems comprehensively rather than treating symptoms individually. The result is support systems that actually support rather than creating bureaucratic obstacles that compound existing problems. Community safety emerges from social cohesion rather than enforcement. Highland communities operate with mutual support systems where neighbors check on each other, share resources, and provide assistance without formal organization. This creates resilience that handles emergencies, supports vulnerable individuals, and maintains quality of life through collective action rather than individual isolation. Emergency services are trained and equipped for Scottish conditions. Mountain rescue teams handle Highland emergencies with expertise developed through necessity. Coastal rescue services operate in some of Europe's most challenging maritime conditions. Air ambulance services provide critical care access to remote communities. These services are available to everyone without financial consideration. Funded as public goods rather than commercial services, navigating Scottish visa requirements starts with understanding that Scotland is part of the United Kingdom, meaning immigration is controlled by UK government policies rather than Scottish preferences. This creates situations where Scottish communities might welcome immigrants that UK immigration policies restrict, leading to ongoing political tensions that affect practical planning for potential expats. Tourist visits from most Western countries require no advance visa for stays up to 6 months. Americans, Canadians, Australians, and Europeans can enter freely for tourism, business meetings, or family visits. However, working during tourist stays is strictly prohibited, with enforcement that can result in deportation and future entry bans. The 6-month limit resets only after leaving the UK for substantial periods, making continuous tourist living impractical. Student visas provide the most accessible route to long-term Scottish residence for many people. Scottish universities actively recruit international students, and the visa process, while bureaucratic, is straightforward for students accepted to recognized institutions. Student visas allow part-time work during studies and can lead to post-study work visas that provide pathways to permanent residence. The post-study work visa allows graduates from UK universities to remain for job searching and initial employment. This visa provides 2 years for most graduates, 3 years for PhD holders, creating genuine opportunities to establish careers and qualify for long-term visas. The key is securing employment that meets skilled worker visa requirements before the post-study visa expires. Skilled worker visas require job offers from approved employers for positions that meet specific skill and salary thresholds. These visas provide routes to permanent residence and eventual citizenship. However, the job market for skilled positions can be competitive, and salary requirements might be challenging to meet, especially in Highland areas where costs of living are lower, but salaries reflect local economies. Ancestry visas apply to individuals with UK-born grandparents, providing 5-year visas with work authorization and paths to permanent residence. These visas are particularly valuable because they don't require job offers or employer sponsorship. Many Americans and Australians discover qualifying ancestry that provides immigration options they didn't realize existed. Family visas allow spouses, partners, and children of UK citizens or residents to join their families. These visas require meeting financial thresholds and relationship documentation, but provide direct paths to permanent residence. The financial requirements can be challenging, but they're designed to ensure families can support themselves without requiring public assistance. Investment visas exist for individuals with substantial financial resources, willing to invest in UK businesses or government bonds. These visas require minimum investment starting at £2 million, making them accessible only to wealthy individuals. However, they provide fast tracks to permanent residence and citizenship for those who qualify financially. Language requirements apply to most long-term visas, requiring English proficiency tests that demonstrate ability to function in English-speaking environments. These tests are administered globally and require advanced booking. However, native English speakers and graduates of English language universities are often exempt from testing requirements. Financial requirements vary by visa type, but generally require demonstrating ability to support yourself without working illegally or accessing public funds. Bank statements, employment letters, and financial sponsorship documentation are typically required. Requirements can change frequently, making professional immigration advice valuable for complex situations. Weather preparation is essential for anyone planning Scottish residence. The climate is temperate but unpredictable, with weather that can change dramatically within single days. Waterproof clothing is essential year-round, not just during obvious rain seasons. Banking setup requires proof of address and immigration status, creating chicken and egg problems for new arrivals who need addresses to open accounts, but need accounts to establish addresses. Pay-as-you-go plans provide flexibility for temporary residents, while contract plans offer better value for long-term residents but require credit checks and address verification. Internet access in urban areas matches European standards, but rural areas can experience limitations that affect remote work possibilities. Satellite internet is available in most locations, but at higher costs and with data limitations. Fiber broadband is expanding, but not yet universal in Highland communities. Transportation integration requires understanding how different systems connect. Rail passes provide value for frequent travel, while bus passes serve local transportation needs. Ferry travel to islands requires advance booking during peak seasons, and weather can disrupt schedules unexpectedly. International driving permits are required for tourists, while residents must eventually obtain UK licenses through testing or exchange programs. This isn't a country you visit, it's a country you experience, absorb, and potentially never want to leave. Relationships here are built on mutual respect, shared laughter, and the understanding that the best partnerships enhance individual lives, rather than completing incomplete people. The Highlands aren't just scenery. They're a way of life that recalibrates your understanding of what human beings actually need for happiness. When your daily view includes mountains that create their own weather and lochs that reflect skies, so perfectly you lose track of where water ends and heaven begins, the anxieties that dominate urban life begin to feel artificially created and unnecessarily consuming. But perhaps the most surprising discovery is how Scottish culture transforms your relationship with time itself. In a world obsessed with efficiency and productivity, Scotland operates on rhythms that prioritize quality over quantity, depth over surface, and connection over consumption. Conversations in Highland pubs can last for hours without anyone checking their phones. But it requires more openness to different approaches to life, more willingness to adapt to weather that participates actively in daily planning, and more appreciation for communities where everyone knows your business but considers that a feature rather than a bug. Scottish independence, political, cultural, and personal, permeates every aspect of life here. This is a country that has never fully accepted external definitions of what it should be or how it should operate. That independence extends to individuals who choose to make Scotland their home. You're not just moving to a different location. You're rejoining a culture that has been perfecting the art of living according to its own values. For over 1,000 years, the healthcare that removes medical anxiety from life planning, the education system that values learning over profit, the transportation networks that connect communities across impossible geography, and the social systems that support individuals while building strong communities. These aren't accident benefits. They're the results of collective decisions to prioritize human welfare over abstract economic theories. The natural beauty that surrounds daily life in Scotland isn't just aesthetically pleasing. It's spiritually restorative in ways that urban environments struggle to match. When your morning commute might include views of snow-capped peaks reflected in Mirracombe lochs. When your evening entertainment might involve watching sunsets paint Highland skies in colors that make professional photographers weep. When your weekend activities might include hiking to waterfalls that have been flowing since before humans developed written language, your relationship with existence itself begins to shift. Scottish humor, Highland hospitality, and the cultural confidence that comes from centuries of surviving everything history could throw at a small country creates social environments that welcome newcomers who demonstrate genuine respect and interest. This isn't a culture that demands assimilation. It is a culture that invites participation from people who appreciate what Scotland offers and want to contribute to what Scotland is becoming. The choice isn't just between expensive cities and affordable Scotland. It's between lifestyles that prioritize accumulation versus lifestyles that prioritize experience. Between communities built around consumption versus communities built around connection. Between daily routines dominated by stress versus daily routines enhanced by beauty. Scotland won't suit everyone, and it doesn't pretend to try. This is a country for people who prefer substance over style. For individuals who can appreciate cultures older than their own countries. For anyone who believes that the best things in life are experiences shared with interesting people in remarkable places. The $700 a month lifestyle is real. The Highland beauty is accessible. The women are as fascinating as advertised. And the culture runs deeper than tourist stereotypes suggest. But the real question isn't whether you can afford to move to Scotland. It asks whether you can afford to miss the opportunity to live this well for this little in a place. This extraordinary surrounded by people this interesting. Scotland is waiting, with that particular Scottish combination of warm welcome and high expectations. The mountains will still be there tomorrow, the lochs will still reflect the sky. The pubs will still host conversations that last until closing time. And the communities will still welcome newcomers who arrive with open minds and genuine interest in becoming part of something larger than themselves. The only question remaining is whether you're ready to trade the familiar stress of expensive mediocrity for the unfamiliar adventure of affordable excellence in a country where ancient traditions and modern opportunities combine to create lives that are both deeply rooted and genuinely free. What are you waiting for? Scotland isn't going anywhere, but your opportunity to experience it while you're young enough to adapt and wise enough to appreciate it won't last forever. Comment below if this sounds like the adventure you've been looking for, and if you're ready to discover what happens when you stop just dreaming about different ways of living and start actually living them.